I work, for example, training traditional attendants in the north of the country. That's my work.
That's midwife attendants?
Yes, midwife attendants. Because in this country, most of the deliveries have been performed or made by midwife. I've been working in areas where 6 of my students have been murdered by counter-revolutionary groups coming from Honduras. And my program was finished because of that. That was in May 1982. But now we have restarted again because it's marvelous. I remember when a health worker was murdered. She was a nurse. And we had a meeting after the murder, and 10 nurses were willing to go there and work as she did in the past.
The morning I spoke to Susana, a young man, Julio Moncada, was ambushed by a gang of Contra and murdered. His job was organizing land reform, and therefore he was clearly a threat.
Julio Moncada wasn't political at all. He just loved his people.
And what was the purpose of killing him, do you think?
I think they want to stop technicians going to the countryside. They want to make people afraid, feel afraid, not going to the countryside to help peasants. And for that reason, I think they are killing technicians now. In the past, they were health workers, and now they are agrarian reform technicians.
These are other victims of the CIA war. Young Sandinista troops at a hospital which, when we filmed there, had 2 months' supply of medicines left. And that was 2 months ago. This volunteer militia boy is 14 years old. He was shot and burned while defending his village. They've been called the gang that couldn't shoot straight, the old gang who gave America Vietnam a back, building new careers with a new war in Central America. John Negroponte, American ambassador to Honduras, runs the CIA's secret war. Negroponte helped to run the Vietnam War as a political officer in Saigon and under Henry Kissinger in Washington. Robert Comer, otherwise known as Blowtorch Bob, is a former CIA expert on pacification, meaning terror. Blowtorch Bob failed to pacify Vietnam, but now works for the Pentagon, advising on how to pacify Nicaragua. Nestor Sanchez, 28 years in the CIA, helped to mount the abortive invasion of Cuba in 1961. He is now a Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense. I interviewed Mr. Sanchez at the Pentagon before the invasion of Grenada, which he helped to arrange.
What do you say to critics of the administration who say the Nicaraguan government has the majority support? There's every evidence that they have the majority of the support of the people. Therefore, that surely should be enough for the United States not to participate in the so-called destabilization of that regime.
First of all, I believe there is sufficient evidence to indicate that the Sandinista government does not have the support of the majority of the Nicaraguan people. I believe that a poll which was taken about a year ago, even at that time, indicated that. The people who have...
Which poll was that, excuse me?
This was a poll that was taken by the church. It was a rather informal poll, as in a country like that you can't really poll, but an informal poll was taken.
Is that the only evidence that you have?
No, the other evidence also is that the democratic freedom fighters, if you may call them, the Contras that have gone in there, have found that the people where they have, the areas that they have gone into, this has been reported by our media, by our newspapermen who have visited with the Contras in the area, and they have found that the campesinos in these areas have freely joined the Contras.
The administration has said that international communism, fueled by the Soviet Union and the Cubans, is responsible for the present situation in Central America. What does that really mean?
The facts are that the communists, the Soviets, the Cubans, are not responsible for the root problems that exist in the area. They're taking advantage of a situation which has existed for a long time and are therefore consolidating the break that they got in Nicaragua, consolidating their position in that country, and proceeding, as they openly state, to export their subversion and their terror to other countries in an effort to liberate these countries from imperialism. I think it's clearly stated by them as to what their goals are, what their objectives are. It's no secret. Fidel Castro has said it many times, and so have the other countries.
And think about this Soviet plot, Marxist Leninism. I think Nicaragua is very interesting in this aspect. There is a nationalistic movement that is in the root of Sandinism. Sandino was in the 30s. He probably didn't know at all about Marxism, but he was a nationalist fighter, freedom fighter. Then you have the tremendous power, influence of the church here. And these people are extremely Christian, extremely Christian. And the main leaders, even though some of them are not Christian now, they have a Christian heritage. And there is a Marxist influence here, very important, very important. And I think the confluence, the convergence of nationalism, Christianism, and Marxism, and a very Latin American sort of Marxism, what we call a Creole Marxism, that has roots in the Indian culture, in the Latin American culture. That's the essence of what is going here. And that's why this revolution is a Sandinista revolution. It's Marxist, it's Christian, and it's nationalistic at the same time.
Could you explain the two churches here, the People's Church on the one hand and the Established Church on the other?
Some people talk about the popular church and the hierarchical church. Well, a church that is not popular is not Christian. To be Christian is to have an option for the poor, for the oppressed, for the underprivileged. This is the basic option of the gospel. Then we never use the slogan of the popular church. We talk about the church of the poor, the grassroots communities.
But there is a division, isn't there? And there's a conflict between the Church of the Poor and the established church in this country as represented by the Archbishop.
It's a dramatic division. And after the visit of the Pope, this division increased, unfortunately. But there is not a religious division. It is not a theological division. It's a political, social division. The church that supports a popular alternative, a popular model of building a new society, and a church that would like to have a much more traditional Christian democratic model.
Which side is the Pope on?
That's a real difficult question. Obviously, the Pope is with the poor in Poland.
In Poland?
In
okay,
Poland.
which side is he on in Nicaragua?
Well, when the Pope came here, I think due to the bad information that he received, with the disinformation that he received before coming here, he was unable to understand what was going here.
That's a very polite way of putting it. I think the bad information he got. But I mean, a lot of oblique things were said when the Pope was here.
Yeah.
Did he understand? Did the Vatican, let's say, did the established Roman Church understand what its Roman flock in Nicaragua were doing?
No, unfortunately, no. This is a new experience, a new revolution in which Christians took and are taking a very important part, building this new nation. And this is very difficult to understand to the Vatican because there is a revolution here. The Vatican doesn't know too much about revolutions, and then it's difficult for the Vatican to understand what is going here. That's a fact.
The Pope makes a habit of